So this exhibition will consist of objects and things that refer to the hyperreal. I'm interested in using printing and casting because it mirrors that projecting which we have on these objects and things around us. It's something which we do in every day when we're looking at objects. There's this constant conversation between what we're looking at and our consciousness analysing it. So when we look at an object, we're not looking at the authentic object. We're looking at the object as what we think of it. So it's not this experience of something for the first time because you've seen it so many different times in so many different contexts. And I'm quite interested in that layering, and I think that's very much where my interest in the hyperreal comes into play, because there is no such thing as the authentic object. There is, as Umberto Eco says, only the authentic fake. So I think it's interesting to kind of expand and also, in a way, mimic that in a material context. In general, how I work is I collect images and I go through the internet and I find these bits of information suspended and make a library of all these different objects. And when I feel that there's a conversation going between particular pieces, then I decide to act upon them and commit to them, where I manifest them sculpturally within my studio. With hydrographic printing, what you have is you take your photo and then you upload it to computer and you print it out onto this special material. So you get that print and you place it onto a tank of water, and as it's floating there you spray an activator over it and it turns the solid page into a liquid substance. And with that, what you do is dip your 3D object down slowly into the tank, and as it descends below the surface of the water, the print clings to all the surfaces. So I'm quite interested in that material transformation from a liquid to a solid. Its substance is changing. As someone who is very sculpturally inclined, and I perceive, let's say, the internet in its abstract form as something which is almost sculptural. So I think it's this nervous system that's reacting. Different areas of it reacts to external stimuli in different way, and I think it absorbs information and it can also send out information. So I'm interested in expanding that notion of the internet as this physical nervous system out into the gallery space. So almost like bringing its kind of veins out into the space, and it's through those veins and it's on those veins and it's in those veins that the information, such as the objects and the things, will travel. I talk about here, I talked about casting, the printing. I like to use resin, and I suppose other materials which I'd like to use would be resin and perspex. So the cast rocks, if they're within a block of resin, they're taken out of the space and they have to be reevaluated once again. And I think it mirrors how we would see them within a virtual computer simulation. In general, you see them as floating, dislodged objects, In these 3D editing programs, when you're looking at a different texture, you paste it onto a sphere. So the sphere is the neutral ground for that texture. So I think it would be quite interesting to bring some of those spheres into the space. So the spheres, it's such a perfect form that it's hyper real. It doesn't relate that much to the original thing. So it's like that simulacrum. It just doesn't really resemble the original thing, even though it is referencing it. Because it's suspended, it almost asks you to kind of quietly kind of think about it, So it's this kind of gentle gesture, I suppose. There's this notion that technology separates us or takes us away from authentic experience, and I think really it's just an additional element to how we experience things. I think there's always going to be things that expand upon our notion of authenticity. Hedges, they're almost like already dislodged from their original forms. So we're all already putting our abstract understandings of beauty and these objects onto them. It's kind of superimposing our preconceptions of what they should be opposed to what they are. You're getting something which is very fundamental to reality, which is trees and leaves, and you're forcing them into this almost visual language of what this space is. And I think they almost look like, it looks like language. Within the space, I would see natural looking objects. So something which looks very realistic, so like a rock or a sphere, which is acting in a surprising way. So kind of playing with your kind of preconceptions of what is the essence or substance of that original, supposedly authentic thing, you know. I think like there's this kind of play between essence and substance, and I think the substance is the physical form of the object or thing, and I think the essence is the authentic quality. And I do think with those natural materials, such as with stone and with water, they are seen as essential building blocks. There's something about the spheres and floating objects which it separates it and it dislodges it from what we understand as that thing. So with a rock, if it is floating in mid-air, then it's counterintuitive to our understanding of its substance. So we think of rock as this heavy material, but to see it floating in mid-air, it counteracts that in a way which is quite interesting.